Folks, just one more time because I'm having a blast with Mike Pollock. Mike is in COWL Girl, and that's going to be at the Players Theater downtown in New York City starting August 10. It's a rom-com superhero, heartwarming piece. I've never put those words together like that. So I think it's amazing. I can't wait to see it. I hope you'll be there in the audience with me. And we were speaking to Mike Pollock, Dr. Eggman, the Dr. Eggman. I love Jim Carrey, but sorry, Mike Pollock is Dr. Eggman for the Sonic the Hedgehog series. Now, Mike, I'm saying Dr. Eggman. I'm Dr. Eggman, Dr. Eggman. What else have you done? What's on the resume?
Well, I'm of an age when there was not much videotaping of shows back in the 70s and 80s and 90s when I was in school and community theater. But I have fond memories of my Bud Frump in How to Succeed in Business. Legendary, if I do say so myself. I was Professor Einstein in Arsenic and Old Lace, an enjoyable character part. Lots of bits and pieces throughout school and community theater as well. But as far as the stuff that's now on air and online and has been recorded, folks obviously know me as Dr. Eggman. Folks before that would have known me as Meat in Ultimate Muscle. It's a Japanese wrestling themed anime that goes back to the little rubber guys that some might remember from their youth. My son is actually collecting those as well. But there was a manga, the Japanese comic book, and an anime, the Japanese cartoon. And Meat was a little guy in a diaper, but he sounded like a truck driver. And in the audition, I fondly recall, we have this little guy who in the original is voiced by a woman and has a very high-pitched voice, but when you do the English adaptation, all bets can be off. And they say, we don't know what he's going to sound like, but maybe he sounds like a truck driver. Oh, does he? Well, here, I got a voice. And it turns out the guy's in charge liked the voice. So we had that. In Kirby Right Back at You, another Japanese anime very popular, I was Marilyn Bustergas, and I was Samo the bartender, which of course involves a racial stereotype I probably couldn't get away with today. Then when Sonic came along, and the folks in Kirby knew me and had me audition, I was Dr. Eggman, but I was also Ella the Maid. Ella the Maid, a female vaguely Latina figure, who again, if it wasn't 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been Ella the Maid. But in fact, I was Ella the Maid, and I was encouraged to pick a voice, but not be so racist. So we toned it down from what it could have been. Right. If you're offended, I deeply apologize on behalf of the franchise. Elsewhere on 4Kids TV and the Fox Box, I was Langston Lickatoad in Viva Pinata, based on a video game of pinatas that get shot off to parties, and a couple of reluctant pinatas that don't want to go. And I was the foreman of the group who said, no, y'all got to go to a party. Sounded kind of pretty much like me. What else would kids remember me? In Pokemon, I was the narrator for a couple of seasons. There was the original guy. There was me. There was the original guy. So I call myself the interim narrator, or perhaps the filling of the narrator sandwich. What else? Big Oriki in Gogoriki, which is Big Oriki was a Russian cartoon of these bulbous figures, each with their own individual personalities. And I was the old vaudeville showman in the 4Kids version of Gogoriki, but then it was picked up by a different producer, and they hated the original, but they liked my characterization. So I got to reprise the role of Gogoriki as Carlin, and then I was also cast as Barry the Bear and Pin the Penguin. So I was 3 different roles, sounding quite distinct, if I do say so myself, in the later releases. So you had Carlin, who's very much like Meat the truck driver, but a little more erudite and a little more educated. Then you had Barry the Bear, who I guess was kind of like this guy. And then you had Pin the Penguin, who was also probably the voice that I did for Einstein in Stick and Links. And these days, in all sorts of anime, if you're in a theater near you, the first Slam Dunk, a basketball themed anime, and I played the coach, very elderly and soft spoken, and very again another mentor figure. I'm as someone once remarked on the internet, Mike is often authority figures in old men. Okay, I'll accept that. Don't like to be typecast, but typecast within a range of the type is acceptable. But that's in theaters now. And then just you'll find me on Netflix and Crunchyroll and shows like that, just doing anime. And then commercials. I've been the voice of IHOP for a while. I was the voice of Hooters for a bit. Uh, Many of those have come and gone, as these gigs do. But I got IHOP on my resume, and not just as a pancake syrup stain.
That's good. That's very
Thank
good.
you. Thank
All
you.
right. Now we're talking about places where you didn't have to learn lines.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're on stage for COWL GIRL starting August 10 at the Players Theater. Do you plan to be real again on stage, or are you going back to the comfort of otherworldly beings?
I am of two minds. The rehearsal process, one thing in voiceover, there is usually no rehearsal. On a big show, you get a table read maybe for the first episode, but usually for what we do, rehearsal happens in the recording session. You might get a script in advance. A lot of times we don't. Here's your part, here's your line, here's what the show's about. The director will tell you. By halfway through the session, you've forgotten everything you've been told, but you're going line by line, and basically it's results oriented. Does this sound right? It does? Great. It doesn't, we'll do it again. We'll take two or three or four. Great. We move on. We're on the next line. Great. It gets pieced together. Nobody knows the difference, but it's delightfully clinical. It's still acting, but it's concentrated acting. You're not worried about the rehearsals and the blocking and the line memorization and the wardrobe, and it's great. But I love the appeal of live theater and on camera as well, and everything that goes into it. And I'm taking myself back to my childhood and college days of live theater and realizing, oh yeah, we have to meet and rehearse, and there's all these 192 lines I have to memorize. So that's the challenge. But when it's done and when it's in your head, when you can just spit it back and tell a story, that's a magical thing. We are
right.
not there yet, but we're gonna be.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Mike would like to play Hamlet very soon.
I met my wife playing Hamlet Cha-Cha-Cha, the musical comedy version of Hamlet that not nearly many enough people know about. But I was Laertes, my wife was Queen Gertrude. We had a dance number, at which point I leapt up into her arms in a dramatic moment. And she loves to say, and then she dropped me after taking a good look at me, but she loves to say that I was the first guy she had literally picked up.
Whoa, Hamlet Cha-Cha-Cha?
Yes, it's by
This was a legit musical.
legit and musical are probably strong words.
Okay, yeah.
It is a musical. It exists. You can license it and perform it. The songs are cute and catchy. A small orchestration. Goofy. The way we did it was as if done by a bad theater company, and it's goofy and it follows the plot, but in a goofy musical way. But it's by Monk Ferris, and it's a real show. We did it in Syracuse, and 20 years later, someone else is doing it in Syracuse too. Because if you look for it online, there's a Syracuse theater company doing this show. I said, I know that show.
You're blowing my mind. I'm a Shakespeare junkie, and I had no idea. Hamlet Cha-Cha-Cha. Okay, I have to look this up.
Look it up. I believe Monk Ferris is deceased, so it's kind of hard to find, but it exists. You can look. I was going to say dig it out, but because he's dead. Yeah, but but yeah, it's a cute, charming show. It's, let's say, it's the equivalent of COWL GIRL, and as far as it's cute and charming.
Wow. Folks, there's so many reasons now to see COWL GIRL. Number one, it's a brilliant show. Number two, it was actually based on a play that became a TV pilot and now is back on stage. So there's a bit of trivia regarding that. You get to see Mike Pollock on stage, and I am sure he is absolutely enthralling on stage in this. You get to see Dr. Eggman on stage. So for you devotees of Sonic, get to meet one of the voices behind there. And this is a superhero rom-com. You don't hear that much anymore. And so let's really support this amazing show and get to see some amazing talent. And one of them is Mike Pollock, really brilliant. And now I know there's another Hamlet out there that I'm a Hamlet junkie. I now have to go find
Head to
this.
YouTube. Head to YouTube. Watch the promos. The promos don't do it justice. You've got to I don't know. Let's start a theater company. Let's produce it. I would reprise that role. So would my wife, I'll bet you.
You laugh. You're giving me some
The
thought.
folks producing this show, I will talk to my director and producer. We've tried to we've tried to get our high school, our daughter is still in high school, tried to get them to do it. Couldn't sell them an idea, but I will talk to the producers in charge and see if they like to. We'd be in. We would be so in.
I'm going to go listen to it and then talk to me. That's really great. That's really great.
I'm sure you could be a producing partner, Jay.
There you go. Mike, it has been a pleasure speaking to you. I'm thrilled that we had this opportunity to have these conversations. You've taught me so much about voice acting. I've always looked at it from afar, if you will, even though I've done some of it. I've never done enough that I could call myself an authority. Now I've spoken to a real authority about it. Thrilled to hear you're on stage. Thrilled to hear you doing this great show. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I look forward to seeing you on stage in August. Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you. Stop by and say hi.
I sure will. Ciao.
Thanks.